Welcome to Heart Centered Marketing. It is December 17th. We are almost at Christmas for 2024, almost at the end of 2024, but that's good news because we're coming into a brand new year. It's good news because I've got my awesome, good friend, Lauren, on the other side in the green room, blue room, whatever color she decides that room is going to be for her. And we're going to talk about 2025 and setting up success and how to absolutely just crush it in 2025. Welcome, Lauren. Good to see you again. How are you?
I am good. I'm so happy to be here. It's one of
Yeah,
my
me
favorite
too.
topics, and I love chatting with you. I know we could talk all day, every day.
Yes.
So we have such great conversations. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'll just, let's just pick it up. Where do you want to go with this? Because, this is the time of the year. I was just speaking to Academy today, my private group, and it was funny, haha, but maybe funny, not haha, because a lot of people just shut down in middle of November. What I found, and and then they don't really ramp up in my experience until actually April because it's like I'm going to promise myself to do something now and then New Year's hits and then it's like 2 weeks in you're like, oh, I'm just going to get over Christmas and the holidays, right? And then the reality hits of got to pay my bills, all the stuff I bought and all these things, and like you're wiped out, and then you get into it's getting into February. Like it's just the worst part of everything is the dark holiday, the dark month, and it's cold, and it's this and that, depending on where you live, but still February,
Right.
right? And then it's like, okay, so I'm just gonna get through February. I'm just gonna chill, and then all of a sudden it's March, and then they're thinking, okay, well, it's March break coming up soon, so I may as well not start anything now. So really, we're looking at April before anything like absolutely crushes and happens. I do not want to fall into those traps. I think that this is a really good time to to really start thinking and start doing things that where nobody else is doing them. So I'll start off with that. It's kind of on a negative note, I guess, but a good negative note that maybe we're gonna amplify that.
Y- Yeah, but it's that awareness,
It's
right?
yeah,
So totally have the same experience. Mid-November, people are shutting down. So that's 6 weeks that they're losing out of a year, right? Besides the summer and other times. And then, as you said, it gets into January, and that's when people start thinking about the year, start planning. But January is typically, as you said, it's like a scrambling month. Everyone's back, everyone's trying to get settled in, nothing's really get done. It's like this frenzy,
yeah,
right? And then April comes, and obviously goals are trying to be met, projects are like have maybe started, and so then it's just same old because it's that case of just got to work in the business or in my role and not take that step back, and then it's another year, and nothing significant changes.
right.
So that's one
What are
of
we
the
gonna
key.
do about it?
Oh, okay. So there's a lot we can do, and like for me, when I work with my clients and I look at setting yourself up for success, right? I see 5 pillars. We're going to talk about one today, but it's purpose, right? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What gives you meaning? It's performance, which is where we're going to focus today. Unless, Joe, you want to focus somewhere else, but performance, perspective, right? What's your attitude? How do you see things? How do you think? And then people, personally and professionally, and then your health and your physiology. So for me, those are the 5 areas that we need to look at, we need to identify what we want, we need to plan it. What doesn't get planned doesn't get done,
Yeah,
right?
I figured
And
that one out after too many hardships.
yeah, and if you look at the highest performers, by the time January comes, they're already doing
Their
the things
momentum.
for 2025, and as we said, other people aren't even you know on the road. And
No.
so I think a couple of things as we wrap up 2024 to start thinking about, and I would encourage to take it more than this, but for sure, is to look at what worked this year and what didn't. Personally, professionally, health, everything, right? What worked, just honest, no judgment, just data. What worked, what didn't, right? And then what do you need to then set up from what was missing, right? So if things didn't work, what do you need? What do you need so that that doesn't happen again? And what worked? How can you maybe optimize that more? The other piece is, what loops do you have to close? Like, what do you have to wrap up and take care of business? Again, whether it's with people, with work, with personal stuff, so that you feel you going into the new year with no loose ends hanging. I know for me, that's the worst thing, right? I don't even
It
like to
is.
go into a new day with things hanging over. So what do you need to basically, what business do you need to take care of? Whether it's apologizing to someone, whether it's planning with someone, whether it's, I don't know, but what do you need to take care of? And then where do you need to step up in the new year? If you see what didn't work, then where do you need to step up? What skills do you need to, what skills do you need to acquire? How do you need to think differently? How do you need to interact differently? Take care of that now. So at least you know that going into the new year. And then the other things you can think about now are, what are your standards going to be? What are your standards and your non-negotiables going to be? So whatever your plan is, whatever your goals are, what's the standard, right? And not a minimum standard. What's a standard of excellence that you're
Right.
going to aspire to, right? And
Right.
then what's your willingness going to be? Because you can set standards, but do you have the willingness and the discipline to stay consistent with it? Because we can all say set standards, we can all set goals, but if we know we're not going to do it now, then why even set it up? Like, set yourself up for success. And then the other huge thing is, know why you're doing it. Why do you have the goals that you have? Why do you have the ambition? Why do you want to set those standards? Because if you don't have a to your core reason, as soon as things get hard, you're going to stop, or you're going to take the path of least resistance. You're not going to have that fight and that drive in you, right? So that's
Right.
another piece. So these are all things we can take stock of now.
Yeah, I love
So,
it. I love it. A lot of those things hit me because, I have open loops, then I have to close in to get it before getting into 2025. And I always take stock every 90 days of what worked, what hasn't worked, and then replacing obviously what hasn't worked, unless you're crazy and you keep on doing this stuff that doesn't work. Like, just don't do
right.
that. Let's do something different. And so I'm in that habit, but I've also found for me, because I am a natural procrastinator, that one thing to get me going into, I guess, momentum is not to wait for milestone dates like New Year, like April 1st, like the end of the summer, like September, like that kind of stuff. So it was like, if I want to lose weight, or I want to build a business, or I want to start a new marketing campaign, like whatever those things look like, it's like, why wouldn't I just do it now? Like, why wouldn't I just start doing it now? Because I don't know if it's for you or anybody else listening to this, but I know that I'm probably going to, I'll use the word fail. It's not going to be a smooth sailing if I'm, especially if I'm doing something brand new, right? If I'm doing something brand new, and I know it's not going to be like I'm just going to start and it's going to be smooth sailing all the way through. I'm probably going to break at some point. I'm going to be consistent for a week, and then all of a sudden I'm like, and then I'll go to my old habits. But here's the point I want to make, is that being aware, because you said it at the beginning of this call, is being aware of that pattern, right? And saying, okay, well, I'll just start again. Like, whatever it is, you're starting to track metrics on your socials or something, and you skip a month, and you're like, there we go again, right? Just start again. But you're so much further ahead when you start immediately on something without looking for all the time milestone dates to wait, like to delay the momentum. What do you think about that?
So I do that in a way, and I think we probably all have our um, version of that. So I'll give you some
Okay.
examples. For
Okay.
me, and this started when I was in high school. I would never start studying, say, at 11:05 or 11:10 or 11:10. It
Right.
had to be or 11:15 or 11:30. I'm not going to do that in between thing. It's like, it's that my thing.
Yeah,
I go in
yeah.
5. So let's just say, same with weight. If I'm going to weigh myself, I'm going to weigh myself on the 1st, the 5th, the 10th, the 15th. It's not going to be the 3rd.
Right.
It's just a quirk that I have. And those things don't matter so much. But what we have to recognize is, where is that not an issue in our life? But where is it? So
Hey,
delaying, oh,
Ted.
I'll start
Let me
on
say hi,
Monday,
Ted.
I'll start on next week, is a problem. Well, it's not. It is a problem in a sense, because you're losing time. And you know what? There's never going to be a perfect time. What's better
Right,
about Monday
right.
than Thursday, right? But it's that procrastination. It's probably things that we don't want to do. And so we convince ourselves, oh, new week, it's better. I'll just finish some loose ends this week. And we create a story for ourselves so we don't feel bad about it, right? But at the end of the day, I think you've got to always ask yourself, what's the difference about starting today, objective, legitimate difference between starting today, Thursday, and starting on Monday,
Yeah.
right? And that's
That's
exactly what's going on now. Why are you waiting for January? Why can't you start now,
right. That's what I mean. Like
right?
I have those little quirks as well. So I like patterns so I don't have to think about stuff. So
Yes,
when I weigh myself, it's like, I'll do it Monday mornings. So I know that that's every single Monday morning I'm going to get basically the same, like whatever it is. And even when I pump gas, I don't stop on a random number. Like I'll stop on
I
either
know.
the 95 or I'll stop on, you know what I mean? I want to get some
Same.
sort of thing. I won't stop on 7, like, whatever. Crazy things. But what I'm saying is like you said, is starting the actual movement toward the goal or the change of what you're going to do, right? So I may not officially start tracking my new fitness routine until January 1st. But there's no reason why I can't start getting on the treadmill today and start just walking a couple of steps, and then maybe I'll just start tracking it on January 1st officially, so I can have my round numbers or my round thing. Like, okay, here's 1 month, here's 2 months. So, but it's getting into that habit of like, no, just do it now. There's no difference between now and next week or whatever it is. Now, here's I don't know if this is gonna. This just came to me because I'm so ADD, uh, and it's so funny because maybe this is why I think this way. I don't know if you know this because you're not ADD, right? You're not ADHD.
I'm not, but I need things to be a certain way.
Okay, so that's obsessive
So it's kind
compulsive,
of,
but in a good way.
yes.
Okay.
Self. Well, it's not always good. That's the thing, right? Some things that can help us get ahead, and the same thing can help us get behind. But
Yeah.
yes, that's where it comes from. Yeah.
So maybe this will help anybody else listening to this. And by the way, let us know if you hear live with a
Sorry.
hashtag live or hashtag replay, and ask us some questions. Get into the conversation. I'm still trying to figure out my iPad down here. So if you see me looking down, I'm not ignoring
I know,
you
me
or
too.
Lauren
I
or
know,
anybody
me
else.
too.
So I'm trying to get
Same
the
here.
iPad thingy going here. So here's the thing: ADHD people, most of us, we have two timelines, or two. No, we look at time in only two ways, basically: now or not now. That's it. There's no other
Interesting.
time. There's no other time. It's like, well, I don't have to do that right now. So that's why, and it's worse because that's why I procrastinate, right? So if you say you have to go and meet me at 3 o'clock, and it's 12 o'clock, I'll be like, well, that's not now, and it might be even, 30 minutes to 3, and you're like, you should get ready to go meet Lauren at 3. Yeah, but it's not now. I don't have to do it. It's not right. I still have time, which is why I think that everything is only going to take 15 minutes to get to. If you ask me from, fly to Toronto to where you are, it's like, yeah, it's about an hour flight. Like, I just don't have any concept of time. So to me, that's also the benefit of what I do now, because it's like, if I make a decision to do whatever it is, it's now. Like, now is the time. Otherwise, I'll go, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll do it tomorrow because I'm pushing it off. So my wife, sometimes she's like, she gets frustrated because she says, why can't you just, like, why do you have to do things right now? I go, because I've got it in my head and I can't let it go. And if I let it go, then that means it's going to let go forever and I'll never do the thing. So I need to go do it now, right? It's kind of crazy.
No, and so my version of that is
Yeah.
is kind of, and again, I'm so much better than I used to be, but it's still in me. It's all or nothing. So let's just say I was prepping for today. I can't do an hour on Saturday and an hour. No, I need the full time block. And so if I don't have that time block, then I don't do it, and I'll find somewhere else to do it. But
Yeah, yeah.
so then you can lose time where you could do something in an hour, and you go, oh, well, I don't have the time, I don't have like the 3 hours to do it, so I'm not going to do anything. And for me, I do fill in that time because I have little things that I can do. But that's, it's kind of your version of it's now or it's not, right?
Yeah.
It's those
Right.
it's those extremes. It's 11 o'clock or it's 11:10, but it's not 11:15,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so so the thing is that we all have those things. Now, I don't think any of us are immune to that. And
Right.
so, number one is to recognize it and own it and not judge it, but no, that's something I have to factor in. That's something I have to manage. If I want to succeed, if I want to optimize my time, if I want to accelerate, and it's okay. But you've got to know it, and you've got to own it, and you've got to have strategies to deal with it. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's going to be, and sometimes it's going to be harder, and sometimes you'll do it, and sometimes you'll miss it. We're human, but there has to be a game plan, and you
So
have to know
how?
yourself.
Okay, so let's go through what's the ones you want to focus on. So we're going to go into 2025. You said there's 5 pillars. Why don't we go through the 5 pillars one more time, real quick, and then which one do you want to
Okay,
focus on today, or if we can maybe
so
even do more.
more. So purpose,
Okay.
which is, why you're doing, I won't explain them. Purpose, performance, which is, I think, where we should go today.
Okay.
Perspective, people, and physiology.
Okay. So, dang it, I should have
You
wrote
tell
down.
me what you want. No, no, no. You tell me what you think will be most
I
helpful
love
to
them.
focus on.
I love them all. Okay, so I'm gonna do it again. So, it's purpose,
Purpose, performance,
performance.
perspective.
That's intriguing. Perspective. Can you give me a little bit of perspective
Yeah.
on what perspective means? But before
So,
that, let's finish it off.
yeah.
Let's close the loop. Okay.
Yes. Perspective, people, and physiology.
Okay.
So let me park your question for 1 minute and
Okay.
say, so performance, the reason I think we should focus there is because that's all the planning. So
Okay.
how do you set up the next year, right? If you don't have tools and a game plan and an effective plan,
Okay.
then you're not going to do it. So we can do that. And perspective is basically, how do you see the world? How do you see yourself? How do you look at situations? Is the glass half full? Is it half empty? What
Okay.
assumptions are you making? So it's essentially how you're seeing people, the world, and yourself, and what's helping you and what's not, and how can you change that, or again, learn things that make it even better.
So is
So
that in the perspective part of it is where you look back at and say this is what was working and what's not working? Is that where that fits in?
so here's the other thing. None of these are linear, siloed topics, right? There's always going to be crossover. So
Okay.
it could fit under perspective. I've got it under performance because if we don't assess and look at what's worked and our results, then how do you do better, right?
Okay.
But
Got it.
it is perspective as well, right? So basically it could fit into both, and there
All
are
right.
quite a few things that could fit into both. But
All right.
I've
So
put it
let's
under
look at
performance.
performance. Like, what do we do there? How do we start there?
Okay, so the way I look at it is there's productivity, right? So how are you going to be productive? What are the things you need to do to help yourself be productive? Then it's what's the execution, right? If you know how you're going to be productive, how do you execute on that so you are the most productive you can be, right? And then it's that's the results, the audit, in so to say, is you've got to keep monitoring. You know, are you on track? Are you going in the right direction? Otherwise, you could be on your way to San Diego, and the next thing you find yourself, I don't know, in Las Vegas, if you don't keep resetting. And my experience is that's what people hate to do the most.
Okay, so I have
Okay, not everyone, but a lot of people.
productivity, execution,
A
and I
lot of
wrote
people don't
down.
like this.
Okay, so I got productivity, execution,
Audit
and
or
measuring, right?
assessment.
Or assessment.
Yes.
Okay. So on the productivity side, let's go there. So now what do we do?
Okay. So they're starting with the 50,000 foot view, right? So when you look at 2025, what's the 50,000 foot view? What's the end game that you want? And again, not just work. What is the end game that you want for your work, for your relationships, for your health? What's the big picture? Right? If you don't have the big picture, then how do you prioritize? How do you map it out, and how do you create a roadmap if you don't know what the big picture is? So it's stepping back again. This is where we have to be really honest with ourselves and not make the 50,000 foot perspective what you want, but what are you willing to do to get there? And will it be enough? And is it, I hate to use the word possible, but is it likely to be able to do that in a
Okay.
year with the commitment that you're willing to make to it? Right?
Okay.
So that's your 50,000 foot view. And then, so then it's mapping it out.
Okay,
Right?
so I
So
want
for
to
me,
I want to do
I'm
this.
very
Are you
visual.
talking about productivity
So
here?
the way I'm, okay.
Are you talking about
Yes.
productivity? Because it
Planning and
sounded like.
productivity, execution.
All right. So this is
It is
goals.
productivity, but part of being productive is you've got to plan.
Okay. All right. Let me
So
actually
you
do
could,
this.
if you wanted to say planning instead of productivity, I guess it's not the same thing, but
Let me actually draw this out.
you can,
So,
I guess, you can different ways you can slice it.
all right. So I'm going to just go just as you're doing this so everybody else can follow along too. What I'm drawing on my paper, I may as well draw for everybody else. These are the keys, right? Performance. Can you see that okay or not?
Right. Well, performance is the bucket, right? It's the main,
Yep.
it's
I'm
kind of
going to
the
put those
umbrella.
in first.
And underperformance is planning or productivity, whichever way you want to go, execution and results.
Okay, one sec. All
Oh, you've got the 5. Okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. So then you got performance, you got productivity,
Or
and you got
planning. I mean, whatever
execution,
people
right?
resonate with. Execution and then analysis.
Oops. Analysis. Okay. Got it. Productivity or
Okay.
planning, you said, right?
Yeah.
Planning. Okay. And then you said, so on this one we were talking about planning. Then you said you got to know what you're doing or what the. So
Right.
bring me up
What
to.
the 50,000 foot view is? What's the big picture?
Okay. Okay. So 1,000 foot view. Big picture for what?
For what's the end game? Like, what are you driving towards?
Okay.
So it could be a 3-year goal, but what's the end game for the year? And if it is a 3-year goal, what's the end game for the year that's going to move forward? Does that make?
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It does.
So then, when you
Like
know
this
what
to me is in like purpose. What's the big purpose of the business? But that's okay. Okay. Then what else? So productivity and planning. You got 50,000 foot view of where we're going.
of where you're going. The
Okay.
purpose is more why you're going there.
Okay.
Why
Why
is
you're going there? Right.
what's the reason for you to go, right? So where are you going? Like, what's the end game? And that's what you never want to lose sight of. That you should have like plastered in front of your desk or somewhere where you're going to see it all the time. Because when we lose track of that, that's when we get caught up in busy work and because we forget why we're doing things. Or when it's hard, we give up, right?
Right.
So then you've got to reverse engineer.
Okay.
If you're going to get this done and you're going to meet that outcome, we have to reverse engineer. And this is where the plan is, because you're not going to be productive if you don't have a plan. So
Okay.
you're going to start off, well, by the end of each quarter, where do you need to be? What's the end game for each quarter that's going to set you up for success of where you want to be at the end of 2025? So you don't have regret. I should have, I could have, I would have, right?
So you want to have like an outcome, right? Each quarter you want to have an outcome. You want to understand where you're going. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. And
So
it's
understand
not
what
going to
that
be
is.
one outcome because
Right.
our lives are not one dimensional, right?
Okay.
Right. So then if you
Outcomes.
reverse engineering, then what has to be done by the end of each month?
Yep.
Right. So we've got each quarter and then each month.
Oh,
And
I
then
see.
each
So
week.
this goes over here. This goes. So what's each quarter and what's the end of each month? Correct.
Right. So it's the year, the quarter, the month, the week,
Okay. Oh, and then the week. Okay.
and then then the end of each week,
Okay.
and then the end of each day. Now, you're not going to do that now, right? So going into 2025, if you're going to do this now, look at the end game, quarterly and monthly. And then when you're in you'll do the weekly and the daily, because it's going to be so dependent on what you actually get done versus what you say you're going to get done. So the weekly and daily planning, like for me, I do it on a Sunday. That's when I do it. A
Okay.
big picture you can have now, and it's going to change. It's not set in stone, but you have to at least have a game plan, right?
Right.
And here's the thing, Joey, most people won't take the effort to make the time to do it, or willing just to think that hard,
It's true.
because also when you do this, there's no hiding from it now. It's kind of there. And
Yeah.
there's almost like there's a commitment to do it, which is exactly what you want to happen, right?
Right.
I don't. So few people do this. So few people do this.
Yeah, and I'll admit, like I don't do
It's
to
not
this
hard.
level of it. I'm starting to get better at this now. Tracking things, and measuring because I was one of those people like I really don't need to know that. I don't need to know this. But the business has not. I mean, the business has grown. It's really great because I'm focusing on one area, but then all these other areas were not getting attention, and you don't know if you're doing well or not. If you don't know if you have a healthy business, so. I poo-pooed the idea of measurement and that kind of stuff, and like it's just a waste of time. But to your point, it's not a waste of time because now I can see whether or not my efforts are actually doing something. And so measurement is really
Exactly.
important. Now the hard part, at least for me, and maybe somebody else, I'd love to hear from you in the chat, in the comments as well, is this planning part? Is okay? What do I actually want to do? And it was, I'm getting, like I said, I'm getting better at it, but it is it's so difficult. Like, why do you think it's so difficult for everybody to do this?
Well, it's the willingness, right? It's almost like, what's the saying? What, naivety or ignorance is bliss, right? Because
Right.
if I don't do it, I I don't have to feel bad if I don't plan. I don't have to feel bad because I haven't committed to anything. It's commitment,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then it's like, I know if I commit to something, then I'm going to feel bad that I don't do it. But again, also, most people, they don't have the clarity. They're not certain about what they do want. And so it's gray. And so it makes it hard to do. But here's the thing. This is not set in stone. I can almost guarantee you that what you've got for Q1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to change over the course of the year in some way or another, right?
Right.
But also, where we have to, this is why the reset and reflection is so important, and the planning. So I'll give you an example. Way back when I was doing a lot of blogging, I'm allocating an hour for do it. I want to get it done in an hour. So that's how much time I put. Random, it's what I wanted. And every week I saw it was taking me 3 hours. But I still kept blocking an hour because, no, this has to take an hour. But it consistently wasn't. And then I had to just accept it. As much as you wanted to take an hour, it's taking 3 hours. So set yourself up for success and block 3 hours.
But
Otherwise, you're always behind. Otherwise, you feel like you're not successful and you're catching up. And especially with new things, like you were saying, when you're doing new things, you don't know how long it's going to take. You're going to guesstimate. But until you do it, you don't know. But you've got to start somewhere.
So this is how I see it. Like, I see that you're planning, and then productivity is its own mini bucket. Because you're going to look at productivity, right? And say, okay, these are the things I want to get done. Yes. And then how am I going to execute them? Well, I guess productivity and execution might be the same thing. And then you analyze on the productivity. So, like you said, I'm going to do my social media blog or whatever, and I'm allocating 1 hour. And it's actually taking me 3 hours. So you go back and you analyze and say, well, now this productivity is going to change because based on what I've already looked at. Like every single month, you're registering, or you're going back and looking at what worked, what didn't work. Right? Is that right?
Right. Yes. And so for me, the way I look at it is productivity is what are you choosing to do? Right? You've got to execute, right? So for me, the productivity is the time blocking. And again, people, you can call it whatever you want, like planning. But for me to be productive, I need to time block. I need to prioritize. I need to schedule, right? Otherwise, I'm not productive. And then I need to execute on that. I need to execute in the time blocks. I need to execute on the planning. And that's where you make or break, right? So I was going to say something else about that. Anyhow, it will come to me.
Okay.
I lost it. It will come to me.
It's okay. Yeah.
So it's doing the work that's going to move the needle. I guarantee you, myself included, we can get involved in busy work.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And so, again, we have to recognize that. But this is what helps make it easier. If you block the time for the needle moving work, then if you get involved, I mean, the busy work still has to get done. But the busy work doesn't have to get done in business hours when you should be maybe speaking to people, right?
Yes.
And that's the other thing is you've got to don't do things that you can do after hours or on the weekend at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. Right? So that's, oh my gosh, and I had the other thing I wanted to say and now I lost it again.
It's okay. It's okay. It'll come back.
See, this is me. So nothing is set in stone.
Right.
But you have to have that game plan and set yourself up for success. When you're doing new things, you don't know, but you can guesstimate, then you'll see what happens. That's why it's so important to track it, right? Oh, this is what I wanted to say.
Okay, there you go.
If you're diligent about this and you set goal, this is what I'm going to do today, this is what I'm going to do tomorrow, and then you get to the end of the week and you do the reflection, over the course of a month, you'll notice a pattern. You'll notice what always gets done, and you'll notice what consistently gets pushed out. Oh, I planned to do this, but then I didn't. You'll see that It will happen. And then you've got to look at, why is that the thing that's always getting pushed out? It's
Right.
hard, it's uncomfortable, it's not creative, it's boring, I don't enjoy doing it.
Right.
So then you have to look at, can I give it to someone else to do?
Right.
Do I have to, you know, psych myself up to do it? Do I need to create an environment where I get it done, even though I don't want to, or it's hard? But that's the value of doing all of this.
Yeah.
Instead of getting to the end of the year and, oh my gosh, I had this, and it just didn't move forward in any way because you didn't
Yeah. You're
notice. It
you're
always got
absolutely right.
pushed off.
The measurement part of it is at least for me on all these years has not been something I've done. And if you are listening to this and you find yourself looking at, I don't need to measure, or it's a waste of time to write things down or whatever it is, measure it or look back at things. I'm telling you from experience, because I've been in business for a long time, over 40 years, and not doing it until the last year now. It's been that long, and I can tell you that it has completely changed everything for me, the way that I do things, and I'm still need a lot of work on it, but every time, like I still have, even when I built it in Notion, I have this weekly review. I have a daily review called a daily it's called a daily meme or something like that. I got it from a book, whatever it is. So but I don't do it. But it's set up. It's set up and ready to go in a dashboard. It's like, okay, do this every and just close out the loops of the day, which I don't do yet. And then there's a weekly one, which I still don't do, but it's there. However, I'm sporadic throughout the days, and when something is, I'm noticing that it's getting either done or not done, or like I said, like you said, I could delegate it to something else. I'm immediately writing all of those things down, so at least I've built up some kind of acknowledgement of what I do want to do, what I don't want to do, and also moving the non what's the word? It's non-productive, if you want to call it that, but stuff that
Or
just needs to get
it's
done.
not urgent.
Yeah, it's not urgent. Uh, but I'll do it, and just to get those things out of the way when it's not important. Like yesterday was an example of this. Like last night, when I was up over, I just didn't want to go to sleep for some reason, and I just mundane things of dragging from one hard drive to another, just cleaning up the hard drives. And like, it's late at night. I'm not really in the mood to be cognitive there. It's just like, I'll just do this stuff, put my headphones on, listen to a little bit of music, right? But I could see myself as ADD and somewhat organized OCD-ish, somewhat, to say in the morning, like, no, because I'm a now person, right? That would be on my brain. And I wake up and I see it. I'm like, no, I got to go do this now or I'll never get it done. And that's where I used to get caught up. I used to get caught up in those things because I would tell myself the story that if you don't do it now, it's never going to get done. And you're going to be angry at yourself when you find it 25, 25 weeks from now. You're going to go, why didn't I do it then? So then I would get caught up in work that was not urgent because I didn't have this here. I didn't have what should I be doing. There was no guidelines. There was no, like the lanes. There is no
Boundaries.
bumpers. Yeah,
Right.
there's no boundaries.
Yeah. And here's the thing, no matter whether it's the tiniest thing that there's almost like no consequence for, or the biggest things, the more you delay, the bigger that becomes, the more stressful, the more anxiety that builds around it, right?
Oh my
So I know
gosh,
for
yeah.
I've had someone on my people list to contact. There was no risking it, and I, for whatever reason, and I know why, and I can share that. I just kept putting it off, putting it off. And then yesterday, or Sunday, when I was doing my planning and I saw it got pushed off the whole week, I go like, that's it. You're doing it on Monday. This is ridiculous. And so I did it. So I think also when we don't have accountability, then it's easier to put things off. And for me, this is why I love planning. I just get tired I love checking things off a list. So I got irritated with myself. Oh my God, you keep moving this on, just get it off your list. So eventually it became like, that's it, line in the sand. But we all do it, right? But the thing is, especially with important things, it's not going to change by putting it off. If anything, it's going to be more work. It's going to be more stressful,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's just starting. It's the starting that's the hardest. We've spoken about that, right?
Yes, yes.
We've got these, and then once you start, you go, oh, it's not so bad, or I can do this, and you get into it, and then oh no, it's so satisfying.
It is.
But it's the willingness.
It's getting that start, because everybody has their own reasons why they're not starting, and then they even have, maybe they don't even know that they have their own reasons of why they're not even doing what we're suggesting here, is the planning part of it, right? Like, because I think that at least for entrepreneurs in that I'm used to, that I've spoken to and trained so many of them, is that planning just seems like a waste of time, because there's no immediate return from it. And we're like, just let me just do something that's getting me some kind of, but that's the wrong way of looking at it, because that planning will save you so many hours later on, hundreds and hundreds of hours, right? Just that sometimes we just can't see it.
Yeah.
So
And
we're here to help you
so,
try to fix that.
right. So when I look at that little thing that I put off the whole week, I know why I did, because I didn't have certainty of how it was going to go. And again, it was such an insignificant thing, and not insignificant, but so low risk. But I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And so I delayed. And that didn't change. When I called on Monday, I still didn't know how it was going to go. It went fine. But I think for a lot of people also, they delay or procrastinate because they don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
And to your
Right.
point, what you said about planning, people don't want to plan because they think it's a waste of time. So there's another, you remember we've spoken about different personality types, right?
Right. Right.
So the flip side of that is that many people in certain personality types, predominant ones, feel that if they plan, then there's no free. If they plan, they've got no freedom. If they plan, they can't be creative, and that's not true. But that's the story they're telling themselves. Because in fact, when you plan, you do have more freedom, and you can
It's
be more
absolutely
creative
true.
because you've created the time to do it. So again, it's like what you said. We all tell our stories that confirm what we wanted to confirm, and we
I
write,
think
and we feel good.
Yeah, and the good part about this, if you want to look at, and you've been listening to this, by the way, if you're here, let us know by hashtag live, if you're here live, or hashtag replay. Let us know if you're watching the replay. If you have questions, input, feedback, stories, we'd love to hear it. Put it in the chat. We'll share it, or ask a question, whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think that by being in business, however long you've been in business, whether it's a year, 6 months, whatever it is, you look back, and if you, it's, I think the main theme right now so far is awareness, is looking back and saying, this is not worked. Because I'm thinking back to when I actually changed my life in 2000, whatever it was, 7, and looking back at all of those years of looking at doing something different and thinking differently, and the argument to myself was, or the, I guess, convincing part was, you've been doing all of this other stuff for the last 30 years, so why not go do this other thing if this thing hasn't worked? Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't do this other thing, with no guarantee that it's going to work, but up to now this hasn't, so why not change that? Why am I bringing that up? Because if you haven't done planning up to now and you think it's not worth it, then there's no reason why you shouldn't try it for at least this year coming up and see how that works for you. Like,
Or even
give
a
things a
month.
shot. Yeah, even a month.
Just
Yeah.
because here's what people do. They go, okay, I'm going to try. And they try it for a few days, or they try it for a week, and they go, oh, it didn't work. I'm not doing it. So
Yeah.
then, but when you look at the plan, they either didn't set themselves up for success, like when I blocked an hour for blogs and I needed 3, they didn't set themselves up for success in that planning, or they didn't follow it. So give you an example. I had a client that I worked with for a long time, and he was, I'm never finished. an entrepreneur, never finished, always work to do. I have to work till 10 o'clock at night. If I don't work till 10 o'clock at night, it's never going to get done. But then he's tired the next day, and I don't have time I can't block things off. I just need to go, go, go. So I said to him, okay, just humor me for 2 weeks
Right.
and do that. Just humor me. In 2 weeks is not going to make or break your year, but let's plan it properly. Promise me you'll follow it. And after 2 weeks, if it didn't work, then keep doing what you did. He comes back to me after 2 weeks and then go like, you're not going to believe it. Well, I did. He goes, he literally got back 3 hours a day. How
Yeah.
come? He'd planned. It wasn't like, should I do it, should I not? What am I going to do, what I'm not? But because he got sleep and he got rest and he was more effective. Now, obviously, there was that transition where that few days of transition, going to bed earlier, and you're off for a day or two. But once he
Sure.
committed and got in there, like he couldn't believe it. And
No.
so, just try things. Don't dismiss things unless you've tried it with full effort and properly, because how can you say it doesn't work when you haven't tried it?
Yeah, that's the thing too, because the only person that we are really fooling is ourselves. If we go back to our coach or whatever and say your thing didn't work and you didn't fully commit to it, then whatever, you can get your money back, or you can stop the program, or you can do whatever you want. You can, whatever it looks like. But you're only fooling yourself. And this is what I figured out for myself is, did I really commit? Did I really do this? And I was not. And I was not. And that's why I'm saying now, even to this day, is I am adamant about this stuff, putting in the time and effort to build the things that are going to help me in the future, but putting intentional investment in time up front to do whatever it is. As you know, I'm a big proponent of Notion and building all of that stuff, databases and things like that, of whatever it is. But that investment and intentional investment of time has saved me now so much, and I can see the continuation of it. And then not only that, because here's the part that you're going to love, because going back to your chart here, where's the execution? I moved it over here, but the productivity piece, let's go down here, put back execution. I know it's in the other part here, but
Doesn't matter.
I now am executing with 100 times more than I ever have been able to do, because of the planning, because I did that, and because I've been productive by doing only things that I want to do, and or creating SOPs, or just having a routine that we can always go back to. So how can we be more productive about doing this thing? And that relates to, how can I do a line here? Can I connect these? I want to connect these. Yeah, this guy, connects to, this guy connects to this, right?
Yes.
The analysis connect. So I'm analyzing everything that I do, so I'm more productive, and the way that we do that is by measuring, first of all, and we do it by writing everything down. So here's a crazy example of this. So I as you know, I have my executive assistant, and she does like a lot of stuff for me. And so the whole idea of that was, take this load off of my brain and go do this, right? But what I found was, what I found was, at the beginning of it, I didn't really know first of all, what I needed off my plate. Then I found that more stuff was coming on my plate. So the productivity level on that chart went completely down, went the opposite way. Like, I'm not being productive here. I'm actually doing more discussions, more training, more things like that and I'm not getting anything done at all, which started to frustrate me. But then now, after 3 or 4 months, it's like, okay, this is fantastic. And the more stuff that I have, everything that comes up, for example, being not what's the word I'm looking for? Being alerted for everything. Lauren's going to be on the call tomorrow, or Lauren just sent in her topic and blah, blah, that kind of stuff. It comes down. It allows you to measure the things that, is this really helping me or not? Okay, we're going to make a list about this, so in the future I don't have to tell you, don't tell me about this or whatever. So it comes down to the execution of it. Like for you, like I said, this is what I want to plan. I don't want to do this anymore. I want you to do this. Then you analyze or you do productivity of, this is how we're going to get it done. Wait a minute, that's not working, because we're analyzing it, and then you're doing the execution of it, and you're finding out, well, this isn't working for me, or this is working for me. So I can tell you firsthand that all the stuff that you're talking about here is an absolute must. I don't know if anything it triggered anything for you to talk about there,
So,
but
yes, I've been making notes here because there are 4 things that I want to follow up on what you said.
okay,
So
great.
the first is with when, you talk about measuring. You have
Yeah,
to know what you're going to measure, and are you measuring the right things? Otherwise, it's also useless. So you have to
right.
know, what am I going to measure, and is that the right thing to measure to tell me if I'm moving closer or further away from a goal? So that's the one thing I wanted to say. The other is with time blocking and making time for things. If you really want to have, if your standard is excellence, then, so I do my planning on a Sunday. I'm not just blocking time. Say I'm writing a book. I'm not just blocking time. Oh, on Tuesday I'm blocking 3 hours to work on my book. No, I'm blocking 3 hours to work on the forward or chapter 1 of the book. So otherwise, what happens? I sit down for my time block and I go, well, what should I do? Should I do the forward? Should I do chapter 1? And before you know it, half an hour of your time block's been wasted because you delay, right? You avoiding, because we know the hardest thing is to start. So if you really want to dial it in, when you plan for the week, you're very explicit about what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, I want to interject there, because
Okay.
that one is a tricky one for at least ADD people or me, because sometimes I don't know where I want to go with it. Sometimes I don't. So it's, if I was writing a book, and I have written a book before, writing another one, and the way I approach it is, I'm going to block an hour a day, just as an example, to write. Okay. And where it's going to take me, I may have an outline. Here's what I'm going, here's kind of the chapter outline that I want to write about. And then I go into writing and look at the idea, and then I start writing. So it's more free writing rather than I'm just going to write chapter 1. And maybe I don't feel it at that point. I don't feel chapter
No,
1.
but you're saying, no, but you're going to write chapter 1. That's it. You're not going to sit down and go, oh, should I write chapter 1? Maybe I should write chapter 5. You don't know what you're going to put in chapter 1. That's the writing.
Oh, well,
But
yeah. Like,
you're going, I'm going to do chapter 1. That's the distinction.
oh, okay, yeah, because I usually start out with an outline of what's the book going to be about, like 12 ideas, and those are chapters. Then they're going to move, obviously, but it's a topic. It's kind of a topic,
Yes.
and so then I'm just going to write. So I'm going to choose one of those. I'm not going to write it in order. I do things out of order,
That's
and then
fine.
put it together. So yeah, okay, cool. So we're
But
on the
you've
same
still
page
got
then.
an intention, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
nothing
yes,
is set
yes.
in stone,
Right,
right?
right.
I could say, I'm going to write chapter 1, and I have a conversation with you, and it just blows my mind. I go, that's perfect for chapter 5. And I write it.
Yes,
Nothing has to be linear.
yeah,
And
that's what I'm talking
everything
about.
can move, but it's got to be an equivalent move. It can't be, the quality has to be the same, so to say. And one thing I've also learned to do is sometimes we do have to move things around. Like, so say, for example, I was going to write chapter 1 today. And like what happened 2 weeks ago, my dog ate chocolate and the whole day was, off to emerge. So I'm only going to move something. No, that wasn't a good example. I'm only going to move something. I'm only going to put off something from today if I can fit it in somewhere else. If it's not going to fit into the plan for the rest of the week, then unless it is absolutely impossible, then it stays where it is,
So what about
right?
people? What about people who are not as organized as you? Like that's an interesting conversation. This is
So
where
lots of people don't like planning because, as I said, They don't have the freedom, whatever. You know what? We all have to do things we don't like. I don't like doing finances. I don't like doing my bookkeeping. I have to do it at some point.
Yeah.
I don't like, there's lots of things, you know what, you're never going to like everything about what you have to do. Things have to get done. So we just have to grow up and go, I don't like planning. I might not be as detailed as someone else, but something's better than nothing, right?
Right.
And the
Okay.
more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it, and the more you'll see it is helping you. But at least start somewhere. At least go, this is where my end game is for you. This is what I want per quarter, and this is what I want per month. Just start somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The one thing that I like to do is at the beginning of the quarter. So I like to do a 90-day, like I use the 12-week year, and I use a little bit of
I love
Brendan
that.
stuff too, like the big moves. Like,
Right.
what are the big moves for the
Yes.
year?
Yes.
And then, okay, so I love that. Like when I learned that from Brendan, I remember that so distinctly because it was such
It
a
is
great example
brilliant.
of, okay, what am I, if you want to make $1 million this year, what are the big moves? And I teach this to all of my clients. And they're like, well, I got to do all this stuff. I go, no, the big moves really is move number one is let's create the product, right? And the other three moves are basically let's make $335,000. Like that's it. That's the big picture for every single quarter, right? And then that takes you down to, well, then if you're going to create the product in the first quarter of the 90 days, then all of the other stuff that you think you need to do, like I'm going to become a genius at filming YouTube channels. Well, no, that's not in Q1. That's part of having to sell, maybe in Q2, Q3, Q4, right? And so that's where I started getting somewhat into planning. And for me, I look at that big quarter, the big goal, and then draw out a game plan as far as I know what's going to happen, what I want to happen in the next 90 days, and then allow myself, as you said, that it's not set in stone, and understanding that there's probably going to be a whole mess of other stuff that's going to come up in this plan, because I personally cannot look at every day. Like I just can't go, what am I going to go do today? What's going to happen today? It's more of the end of this week. I'll use the week, but more of the end of the month. That's just how I operate personally. But I'm still planning like the 90 days and then allowing myself to adjust throughout the entire month and go, well, that didn't work, or I shouldn't have put that in there. Like, and I'm okay with letting that go, or pushing that on to the next month, because it shouldn't have been in that quarter or that big move in the first place. Any thoughts around that? Any debate on that?
Okay,
Any difference?
I'm writing so many notes here as follow-ups to what you say. So give me 5 minutes to follow up. So
100%.
one of the things is I'm going to challenge you
Yes.
to assess at the end of the week where you're at. Okay,
Okay.
do it for a month. Let me know what happens. We'll come back and we'll see. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Second thing is to look at the end of the week, what percentage of your time was on needle moving things that are actually going to significantly move your goal forward, and how much of your time? If it was 20, 30, 40, 50%, it's not enough, right? 60% or more really should be on those needle movers. The other thing is that, again, nothing is in a silo. So you could be working on two moves at the same time. So if we use the example of a book, if I'm writing a book, I probably don't want to wait until the book is finished to figure out how I'm going to market it or to start talking about it. So I may be working on two moves that I'm writing the book, but I'm also actually starting to promote it. So again, it's not always lateral. And that's something it's not, or linear, should I say. So that's the other thing. And then what you were speaking, I can't remember the example you gave, but with reminders. And again, no judgment. Know what your challenges or weaknesses are and find strategies to help you, to make it easier for you. So I'll give you an example, or any example. If I'm trying to lose weight, I'm not going to have candy and chocolate and cookies in the house because that's my weakness. Why would I sabotage myself? So it's the same thing. reminders on your phone or whatever it is that's going to help you stay on track, then use those things. You don't have to be a martyr and go, oh, I'm just going to do it me. I'm not going to write anything down. Why? Why would you make it harder for yourself? Right? And then the last thing that I made a note on is you spoke to it earlier about delegation, right? So this is the consistent thing. I don't think I've ever heard anything different to this of why people don't want to delegate. Because the first response I always get, it's going to take me too long to explain or train that person, so I may as well just do it myself.
That's right.
And then they're always complaining, I have to do everything myself. I've got so much to do. Here's the thing. It is going to take time to train that person or whatever needs to be done. Short-term pain, long-term gain. You
100%.
also have to look at it over the long term. You can't say, oh, well, I gave this person something to do that normally takes an hour, and so I get an hour back now. No, you're not going to get maybe that hour back now, but if you add it up over the year, you'll get more than that back. But yes, it does take time to train someone else, but then it's off your plate.
That's right.
So I think so people have to think about there's more to it than that, right? So so those were the notes that I made on all the amazing things that you were saying.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So there's a couple things I want to talk about there, especially the part of hiring other people, because you're absolutely right. That's how I felt. Is that's going to take me too long, and I'll just do it myself. And now it's become such a habit that I record everything that I do, that I give to Kath, and even I think it was this morning, I was trying a new thing. We're talking. We have a meeting every Monday, and so that's a catch up meeting. So like, what's going on? Like, what questions do you have for me? Like that kind of thing. So
Perfect.
I
Yeah.
understand. And so then it was. I've got this cool idea of this automation I'm going to build. I'm going to do it for you, and whatever. Just I'll let you know. So as I'm doing it, I'm recording what's happening, and then I'm just talking through it. So that took about 3 minutes to do that. Okay. Aside from setting up the automation, like here's what it's supposed to do, here's what's going to happen, blah blah blah, right? Okay, so 3 minutes, and then I sent it to her. Here's the project, here's the video, go watch the video, here's what's going to happen. She asked me a question inside of Slack. It's like there was a problem that came up with it, hey, blah 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 blah. And I said, because I knew that I talked about it in the video, but I knew, so I could have wasted more time talking back and forth on that, but no, I said, did you watch the video? Like, politely, did you watch the video? Oh no, so it's in the video, trust me. And that bought me back all that time, even if it would have been a simple yes or no answer or something. But these small moments add up over time. So once you get into a habit of doing something so that you can delegate to other people, and they learn how to associate with that, then that's where you're going to buy back all of your time, right? So that was a big
Yes.
one for me. Is like getting again. There's two things there that I want everybody to hear. Is that you're establishing a productivity, which go back to this chart here. You're establishing a productivity, and even probably a routine or some kind of process that is helping you become more productive, because then I don't have to stop what I'm doing to have a conversation that was already recorded or already done, right? Where most of the time I would have just got back into that conversation, and if it was maybe within my time block time, which I shouldn't be getting notifications anyway, then it would break my concentration. It would totally take me off track, and then it would be like, oh well, I'm not being really productive today. So that's what we're talking about here, is getting into a routine of doing something that when you're going to delegate to somebody, that it's going to take you a little bit longer, or maybe 3 extra minutes for me to do something, to give the project to somebody else so that they can take it and run with it and deal with it, rather than spending hours, right?
Right.
Or actually doing it myself. Because I remember even on, sorry to keep going here, but there was another
No.
thing I was doing on Saturday night. We went out to a Christmas party, and something came up, and it was one of those, now got to do this now, right? Which it didn't have to be done. So it was like, I'm just going to do this now, because there's only 24, 25 of these things that I can do. and then we have to go and my wife is going, we have to go, like you have to get ready. I'm like, okay, just give me a couple minutes, right? So exactly the pattern that's not good. I'm like, don't worry, I'll just got to get this done. But then the new Joey kicked in and said, do you really have to do this, or can you sit here and record a video of you doing the thing you're doing right now and just give it to Kath, which is exactly what I did, which I would have never done before, which would have made me extremely late for a party, and my wife may be angry at me or something because like I only got these things to do. Let me just get this done and then we'll go on. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're fixing by doing what we're saying to do here. I know you have some stuff to say about this.
Well, I have a funny story. So I can't remember what movie it was, but the wife was constantly late. They were always late for stuff. They always missed. So eventually the husband like just couldn't take it anymore. And it was all like important, like events and whatever. He goes, new time, AIS. We are leaving at 7:00 AIS. He goes, what's AIS? She
Oh, I
goes,
know where you're going with
arse
this.
in seat. If it's not, I'm going without you. And he did. She couldn't believe it, right?
You're
But
talking about Raymond. It's an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.
okay, oh, that's right.
Yeah,
But
and he left
it's
without
kind
her.
of
That
like
was a
that.
classic episode.
That was-
Ass in seat. Yep.
So I just want to go back to delegation, right? So here's the one. Anything that someone else can do, you should delegate. There's certain things, as we've spoken about, you have to do. That's your genius, that's your skill, that's what you do. Things that other people can do that can be trained, that should be delegated. That's the one thing.
Yep.
Part of the issue is sometimes and often, those are the things we love doing, right? I might love doing this thing. I don't want to delegate it. I actually enjoy doing it. But it's not good use of my time. And then another piece of why many people struggle to delegate, because they have this perspective that then they're not needed and they're going to become irrelevant if or someone else is doing it and they're not. So there's that fear of, not being needed. Then what happens if I'm not needed? So there's all these underlying things that are going on. And if people can develop the awareness, and that's why coaching is so important, because if we could see those things for ourselves, and things would be moving along much easier, much better. It's hard to see these things for ourselves. And part of why it's hard is we don't know what to look for. But it's also not things that we actually want to know about ourselves. And so we ignore it. But those are often the things that are holding us back. The other thing I wanted just to mention about execution is pace. Like, it's one thing doing the things, but are you on pace? That's, actually that's a measurement thing, but it ties into execution. The other is decision making. Like, how good are you at making decisions? And if you're not, what's the reason, right? Because the more you delay making decisions, the more you delay everything else. And then the other piece is, again, when we spoke about like looking at the year and what do you need that you don't have, is going, what skills do I need that I don't have, but that are relevant to what I need to do, right? So I could maybe go and learn some, programs, but it's not the best of my time because someone else can do it. So what are the skills or the knowledge that I need to put me further ahead? So that's also another piece of execution is the excellence and the standard and the willingness to make yourself be ahead of the game. Not wait until, oh my gosh, everyone knows that, I better go and learn it, or stick your head in the sand and pretend it's never going to happen.
Right, right.
Be ahead of things.
I think that a lot of us know in theory about what we're talking about. Like if somebody looks at this, like I've heard it all before, but
Yes.
they're not doing it. Like that comes down to
Right.
the execution. At least I know I wasn't. I was, went to how many seminars, read how many books and productivity, even started coaching on productivity and still wasn't doing a lot of it. And like, well, I'm not doing any of this stuff. And it's just the standard of non-execution. We look at it and think, tell me something I don't know. Because we're always looking for these hidden gems that we've never heard before. Guess what, guys? You're not going to hear anything that you've never heard before. Like it's all out there. Everything you need to know is
Right.
already out there. It's already been done. And just go, if you've heard it a million times and you haven't done it, that's where you got to go back and look at it, right? Is like, I've written this down. I've gone to how many seminars that told me the same thing. Well, that's when you got to look at yourself and be honest. Have you actually done it? Have you actually
And
executed?
the other piece is that no one's not at this point. I don't think not a lot is getting reinvented, right? I mean,
No.
AI and things like that. I mean, obviously there's innovation and things are happening. But in terms of what we're talking about and sales and productivity and create, you're probably not going to hear anything that is brand new, never been said. However, you may not have heard it before, right? And you may have heard it 10 times, and those 10 times wasn't the right time for you to hear it. And the 11th time, it's now I hear it, now I get it because I'm either at that point or I'm willing to do it. I'll give you an example. I, I work with someone, and they've told me the same thing, and this is on a personal growth perspective. They've told me the same thing. I don't know how many times they've told it to me. And the last time I met with them, she just used a different word to describe the exact same thing we've been talking about probably for a year. And it's like, oh my God, light bulb, right? Because I was ready, but it was also a different perspective. So when you hear this, yes, you've heard it, but maybe what Joey said about the 5 moves, or you hear one little nuance on something that the payoff is exceptional. But if you're going to go into everything, oh, I know this, I've heard it, then don't even show up, right? Don't even listen, because you're not going to hear anything.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to know it. If you're not, my attitude is, if you're not doing it, you don't know it. You don't,
Exactly right.
or you
Exactly
don't
right.
understand it.
Exactly right.
So,
That's why I like
okay,
the
so
execution piece. The
yeah,
execution piece is so important to, like, you even challenged me, go and do this for 1 week, because I don't know how long it's been sitting in my Notion dashboard, is why don't you do your weekly review? Right? That's my attitude, right? But it's the wrong attitude. So now you're challenging me to go do that once a week, and I will. I'll go, okay, so I'll start now at the end of this week, right? And say, well, okay, I'm going to review on what happened at the end of the week and see and measure it. I just started even measuring the metrics on my socials, like I've never ever done before. Set all that up last week or whatever it was. Went back like 3 months and started as far as I could go, and just
right.
started measuring that. But I could have waited and said I'll start at the beginning of the year. Right, let's get the
Well, good for you.
let's get
Yay.
the cool data now, right? And it was cool because I'm super proud I did that, but at the same time, I think it was last week with Audra, she was asking me, we're talking about something like that and growth and being consistent in marketing. And then she said, well, are you measuring things like, do you know it's working? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do know it's working, because here's what I can tell you in the last week that has happened. And it was great, because if I would have been asked that question before, I would have been like, I think it's working. But this way I know it's working because I
Yay.
have the data.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yay. So here's another thing is that, so I'm working with someone on something different. So what I also want you to hear is, I'm a coach. I've been coaching for I don't know how long. I work with coaches to help me, right? So what I'm working on, I could probably figure it out myself. It would take me 10 times longer. I'd probably get frustrated and give up. And the fact is, I haven't done it. And so I'm paying someone to help me do it faster, to coach me. But what I'm most excited about is that I'm going to have accountability. I give accountability to everyone else. I know with this person, there's not a chance that I'm not showing up with the work not being done, right? And so it's what I was saying earlier. Give yourself the tools that are going to help you succeed. So a lot of people go, I don't need to pay someone to hold me accountable, or I can figure this out myself. Well, you haven't figured it out. You're
Yeah.
not doing it. So obviously you do not. Just get your ego out the way. Just get your ego out the way and give yourself all the resources and the tools to help you get ahead faster, to achieve what you want and enjoy what you want sooner than later. So I just want to show as an example, like myself as an example.
Yeah, I
I'm
love
working with
that. And
two
thank you.
coaches right now. In fact, I'm working with three. And I'm so grateful for that, especially this person that I've just started with. And as I said, I'm most excited about the accountability.
Yeah.
And that's inspiring me and getting me excited to do things that I was dreading doing,
Right.
right? So you've also, it's kind of like mind games, but you have to know the mind games that you need based on your personality. What else? I have a couple of other talking points. I know we're going long. So here's the thing with looking at results. If you're going to look at them and get down on yourself and, oh, my, like I'm not capable, or I can't do this, or I'm this or that other, it's not helpful. You've got to look at it. It's information I need so that I can do better. But at the same time, it's about taking ownership, right? I didn't put the full, like what we were saying earlier, I didn't put the full effort into it. I've only got myself to blame. I hate using that word, but I've only got myself to be responsible for that outcome. So now it all comes down to choice. Am I going to choose to step up, or am I going to choose to stay where I'm at? And sometimes it's okay to stay where you're at. You know, things might be going on and you go like, you know what? I'm happy to hold you for a week or whatever. But you have to make that choice. You don't
Yeah,
have to make that choice.
you have
But
to
you know
know
what?
that.
By not making a choice, you are making a choice. So
Yeah.
it can either be a helpful, intentional choice, or you make no choice, you've made a choice.
There was a
Right?
point. So to that point, I just want to share something so that someone else listening to this will know that it's okay. When my business was not growing, sometimes I would intentionally stop selling or something, like offering things, to do other things in the background of the business. And so then it comes to one point or something where you're like, wait a minute, I didn't make as much money as I did last year or something. But then if you look back and look at the choice that you made, in my case, it was, well, I'm not going to do this offer anymore for the rest of the year. Okay. And so the business obviously doesn't make as much money, but you're doing other things to build the business up so that you can have more time in the future. So that's what we mean is like, instead of me being down on myself that, oh, the business it took a downturn this year. Well, if you make the decision, or I guess judgment, which is not the right thing to do, I suppose, but I guess analysis at that one moment in time, it's only a chunk of time. Like it's today, you're looking at the number and going, yeah, the
Yeah.
revenue didn't come in. But
Got to
but
look at
then
the
you have to look back and say, well, why didn't that happen? If it's one thing that you were still doing the same thing and it went down, it's a
yes.
completely different analysis, right? But you looking back and say, oh, that's right. In June, I just decided to do this, and I haven't been consistent about posting, or I didn't put my offer out, or whatever it is, right? So this is why it's so important to have that perspective, or that I guess that spotlight on what have I done here? Like, what's changed to make this result better or worse?
Yes, so it's kind of like the client who tried the productivity for 2 days and said it didn't work.
Right.
You have to think it gives time, because you have to see things might not change in the first week. They might only change in the fourth day of the fourth week. But so that's where you've got to give it a fair chance, and you've got to do it properly. I mean, I'll give an example. My little floof, my puppy, the vet keeps telling he needs to lose 3 pounds. And like he's lost 1.5 pounds in like 6 months or whatever. So he goes, you're on the right track. So I said, can I bring him in every week to weigh him? And he goes, no. He goes, because you're just going to get upset, because how much is he going to change in a week? Like, come in every month, right? So you've got to give things time, but you also have to know that you're giving it a fair shot. You're putting the full effort in. You're not like half-assing it, and because then it's not going to work. Obviously.
One other thing to that, I don't know, this is not the same parallel, but it's along the same lines. Is at least for me, when I'm working on something to get better at it, I always, more times than not, about 80% of the time, it gets worse than before it gets better. And I always look at the analogy of a bow and arrow, right? You have to pull the arrow back before it can go further.
Yes,
and
I
the
love
more
that.
you pull it
Yes.
back, the further it goes. So I'm like, okay, so
I
in terms of
love
this
that.
productivity,
Yes.
right? All that stuff is like, this is only going to get worse. I'm not being productive now. It's probably going to take me more hours to do these training things or whatever. But in the long run, like you said, it's going. I'm pulling the arrow back. So this is where a lot of us might get stuck. Is like, well, this is going to be even more time. I don't have time now. It's going to take me more time. I'm telling you that it's going to get worse before it gets better, and some people just hate that. We just can't stand it.
Yes.
So pull the
Yes.
arrow back as
The
further
other
as far as you
thing,
can.
perspective in the fall, yeah. The other perspective I want to give, whether people are live or watching the recording, and I also hear this a lot, is whoever, we look at the people at the top of their game, and go, oh, it's easy for them. I can't do that. But what you have to realize is they've been at it for way longer than you. It wasn't easy for them. You can't judge where you are now to where someone is 10 years down the road. So, yes, my planning is maybe off the charts, but that's who I am, so don't try and be who you're not. But I've honed this in. I think of coaching, and I hear from, you used to hear from my team all the time. You're so good at this. It's so easy for you. Because I've been doing it for however long. For the first 3 years of my coaching, every single week, I listened to one of my calls to learn. I don't know any of my team that did that. And after 3 years, I did it twice a month. And I do it once a month now, but I still do it because there's still things to learn. But the point is that you may not have, it's like you saying, well, I'll do that. I'll reflect at the end of the month, but not at the end of the week. Or I can't plan, I don't know how to plan to the detail that Lauren does. You don't have to, you're not me, right? But you can do it. None of this requires IQ, genius, genetics. Everyone can do these things we're talking about.
Yeah.
You just don't compare yourself. Compare yourself to yourself. Where were you a month ago and where you are now? We've been doing this a long time. And you just heard, I've still got coaches. Joey's still working on stuff. It's always going to be an evolution or whatever you want to call it. But get in the game.
Right.
Don't sit there and go, oh, they can do it, it's easy. I'll give you another example where people, I was speaking at Brendan's events, and the team was going the next day, and the team was going out that night. And I said, I'm not going out, I'm going to go back to my room, and I just want to prep and whatever. And someone said to me, oh my God, you're just like ridiculous. You knock this out the park every time. Why don't you come for supper? I go, why do you think I knock it out the park? Because I'm not coming out for dinner, and I'm going back to prepare. So when you think it's easy for people, you don't know the work that they put in behind it.
Yeah,
that
you don't.
Makes it easy.
It's behind doors.
Right?
Like you don't see
and
it.
So you have to remember that.
Yeah. It's all, and the thing too is a lot of the people that we see that we're comparing ourselves to, whatever, they all of a sudden are exploded onto the marketplace, and you see them, but it's all of those years of when they were nothing. Like I can go back and name a whole bunch of people that people would know now, who I saw in masterminds before. And if you look at them, they're asking questions like you and I are asking right now, like, so how do I grow my audience? Like, how do I build my what is a landing page? How do I do an email sequence? Like that kind of stuff. And these are the people that are the leaders in the industry today. If I look back at them, I'm like, oh, I remember that. I remember when that person went up to that microphone and asked a question at this event or whatever, and it's uncanny. But then all of a sudden, now you're comparing yourself to that
I
person,
love
but
that.
they have had 15, 20 years of building behind the scenes, day in, day out, doing all of this stuff. And so the longer you wait and
Yeah.
avoid it, the longer
And
it's going to take you.
and one thing I want to make, and the more you get behind. So there's one thing I also want to maybe is, and we've spoken about this before. You have to know yourself, and you have to know what works for you. What works
Right.
for me may not work for you in the same way, right?
Right.
So what about this? I mean, if you listen to the Brendans of the world and that group, they all say the same thing. You do not look at emails. You wake up and you do the hardest needle moving stuff and you don't touch anything else.
Right.
I get that. Doesn't work for me because those little things are niggling at because I need to things be in order. And so if I did that, I'm anxious, I'm distracted because I know there's these little things. So for me, I take an hour, I knock those things out, and then I'm like a runaway train. So you also have to look at these tools. They all make sense. They all have merit, but you also have to use them in a way that's going to work for you. Again, otherwise you're not going to do it. So that's, I think, important. There's ways to dice and slice this, but you want to find a way to dice and slice it.
Yeah,
I
exactly
think
right.
that's really, I think it's important for people to remember or
Yeah,
know.
I think it's the most important thing to remember because at least when again I work with a lot of people and they're looking for, well, what's the right productivity thing? I read that book, that didn't work for me. What's the right? And I always tell them there is no right productivity. The one that's right is the one that you create from the existing productivity
That you're going
templates
to
or
do.
whatever methodologies that are out there. That's the right one. That's why when I mentioned the 4 moves from Brendan, I merged that with the 12-week year and took the 12-week year and merged that with getting things done and created my own productivity way of looking into the future because I couldn't do it with everybody else's one-page planner or whatever it was. So I made my own system up, and that's what allowed me to move. But the
Right.
important piece here is that you just have to move. You just have to do it and be able to adjust things. To your point about email and all, I get it too. Like because one of the biggest things any entrepreneur will tell you that who's making millions and millions and even 10-figure businesses, they'll tell you you have to immediately let go of your emails, like delegate everything, that you just don't own your inbox anymore. And that's hard to do, especially for somebody like me. And it sounds like you too. However, I built a system in order to be able to let go of it now. It doesn't mean I don't check it, but it's not that it, and it never really did become part of my world as it was. Like I didn't wake up and have to go look at my emails. And today now it's even better for me because we've devised a system that works, right? So if I need to go look at things, I know that there's only 5 or 6 folders that things are going to be sorted in that I only have to look at, and basically everything else is being taken care of. And then to the point of, like you said about AI, this is where we use the technology because to be better at things. That's all. It's like how can we take this off of our plate now and let technology do this?
Yeah.
So it's like
Optimize. Yeah.
yeah, you're optimizing it. You don't have to do this anymore. The AI will do this for you. The AI will sort this out for you so that you can go do the thinking work that it can't really do. That's a whole other topic, but that's where the productivity piece of what you talked
Yeah.
about here comes in.
Yes. And so another thing that when you said about, we were talking about emails,
Yeah.
everything is also relevant to where you are. So I understand if someone's getting 200 emails a day, oh my God, you don't want to get in that rabbit hole. I'm not getting 200 emails a day. For me, it's manageable. It doesn't take me long, so that's not as relevant for me. If it
Right.
did become that, then I would have to rethink it. And so you also have to remember, not everything is going to be applicable to you for where you are and what
Right.
your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. So I hear that. It doesn't
Right.
apply to me. I don't
Right.
have to worry about it now. I mean, I might down the road, but right now, I don't have to worry about that. So
Well,
you've got to be discerning. So
true,
you also don't
true.
get overwhelmed.
No, and if I was coaching you, I would challenge it too, because I know where I was in that same place. Because it was like, I don't get, and even to this day, Lauren, I don't get tons and tons of emails. So I was in that place where, like, well, I don't have to do this now because I'm not being bombarded with it. But then my thinking or my coaching helped me understand that, well,
Yeah,
why don't you do it now while it's easier?
it's a habit.
And it becomes a habit, yes. But right now, because you don't have hundreds and hundreds of emails to deal with, why don't you deal with the ones that you have coming in and get into the habit or the automations and that things like that, so that when it does
Yes, yeah,
become
that's a very good
overwhelming,
point. Yes,
right? That's the way that
that's a
I
very good
approached it.
point.
Yeah.
There's my coaching moment. See, I
We
know
hope.
that. I tell other people that I needed to be reminded of. That's why you have to engage in these things and not always come with the, the attitude to learn and not
Yeah.
go, oh, I know this, I know this, I know this, right? I know that.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that now. And it's like, it was like,
Right.
because I'd forgotten about that.
Make
That
it simple
perspective,
now.
right? Yeah.
It's because I don't
Thank
know
you,
about you.
Joey.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, the worst for me is trying to catch up on stuff that is just so overwhelming, right? That was the big part. And I don't know if I told you this or if we talked about this before, but when I was getting into the emails, which was only now 6 months, maybe it's even been five. It hasn't been very long. And Kath and I spent 2 months, and I'm not talking about like hardcore, like every day, 24 hours,
Right,
okay?
right.
But it's 2 months, and I think I spent one week, not even a week. Yeah, it wasn't even a week. I went through 7,000 emails to clean up, okay, in 1 week. But I did it on my non-cognitive time and stuff like that. So it wasn't like,
Yes.
right? But
Perfect.
7,000 emails to get down to inbox zero, just so we could be the system. And if you look at that and you go, holy crap, 7,000 emails, like what's going to happen there? Imagine if it was 700,000 or 7 million emails, right? There's a point where you just look at it and go, it ain't even worth doing any of this stuff. So that's what I'm trying to, again, I know you already get it, but for someone else listening to this, like, it's not
Yeah.
that bad. Well, fix it before it doesn't get even worse, right? That's all.
Yeah. And
That's
so
all.
that brings it full loop to where we started this afternoon, tonight, wherever you are, is that what do you need to clean up? What can you clean up right now so that you go into a new year just feeling like you've got a clean slate? And well, I'm like that. I like that feeling, but
Yeah.
that's a perfect opportunity. If you've taken downtime, as you say, you can do it late at night. You can do it kind of while you're watching, I don't know, basketball or whatever, and get those things done because it might be busy work, but at some point it has to get done. So this is well, any time is good, but I think this is a great time to knock all those things out.
It is because, for those of you who want to just take it easy, which is completely acceptable. Yeah, okay, we're not telling you to go nonstop, pedal to the metal. But you can do this other stuff that is stuff you put off before, where it's not so critical anymore because you're going to take the time off anyway. You're not going to get client calls in anymore. You're not doing sale, whatever it is you're doing. You're not probably doing, so you probably have more time in your day now to do this other stuff, to do the thinking stuff. So we can talk about this on another call, but maybe we should talk about, thinking time, because that's one of the big things that I've introduced into my life of, like, actually planning thinking,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
a lot of us don't do that, but I do. I plan thinking because a lot of us think is, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting there in a chair. And what am I thinking about? Some things I don't get anything out of it. Well, no, maybe you just chilled. Maybe your brain needed a break or something. And many times, I don't think there's any time at all where I'm sitting there with my iPad or a pen and paper where nothing has come out, right? Like nothing. In fact, look at this. I'll show you this. I haven't even figured this out yet, but here's a doodle I did about like what do I actually do? And this is scribble. I go, if for some reason it just came to me and go, when people ask me what I do, here's what I do, and I scribbled this all out. I go, wow, that's a really good framework that I'm going to work on. So sooner or later, you guys will see this in a better format.
That's awesome. You know, and it is so important. I mean, I think of one client that I had that kept saying, you know what, I'm working, I just don't have time to work on the business. And we're like, well, why can't you block an hour every morning? Well, everyone needs me. Well, can it wait an hour? Can you put a sign on your door? Just tell them from 8 to 9 you're not available, and then it's an open door. And then what came out is he said, I feel like I'm not productive. If I'm not in meetings and I'm not helping people, I feel like I'm not productive. But again, challenged him to do it, and it was a game changer. So it isn't, you know, we said this before we got on the call. If you don't block time for it, it's not going to get done. Like if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So two things is to block time to think, just white space, you know, and if nothing comes up, as you said, like maybe it was just you needed that downtime, right? But it's there. The thing that I do, one of my favorite, probably my favorite block of time, because you know me, I like checking things off the box, is Friday afternoon. I'll never see clients, and I block off 2 hours to either catch up on stuff that didn't get done, or just, I don't know, get random little things done. And if there's nothing to do, then I've got 2 hours that I'm going to take for myself. But it also takes the stress off me in the week. Oh my God, it didn't get done. I know I've blocked time that's not negotiable on a Friday afternoon to get things done that maybe didn't. And if there aren't any things, I mean, there's always like a few little things, but then it's great. I'm going to go and do something that I enjoy, that recharges me. And I love that block of time. I think it's important as well to have that, you know, catch up on little things. And well, for me anyhow, it works.
Yeah, Dan Sullivan calls that buffer time.
Oh, yes, that's a great word for it. Yeah.
He calls it buffer time. So I learned it from him, where we have like certain days of like 24 this 24-hour block. I don't do it in 24-hour blocks like he's doing it suggested, but it's like this day is going to be, you know, sales stuff that makes the needle move for all your marketing and sales. This is another day for this. Then you have a buffered time. So I use that again. I've taken that idea and say, okay, how does this work for me? So I use it during I use the 50-minute focus session, which I learned from Eben Pagan back in, I don't know, 2010, whatever it was, way back then. I think he learned it from Dean Jackson, but whoever doesn't, it doesn't matter. I've been doing that for that long now, since 2010. Started with, and this is a great point for anybody, because back then in 2010, whenever I learned that, maybe it was earlier, but anyway, the one thing he said in that, because we were in a private mastermind, the one thing he said was, just do this for me. Just do it one time. It was either a day or a week. It was like I think it was one hour a day. Just do it 1 hour a day for the next 2 weeks and let me know what happened. Just like you said, right? And I think it was a week actually. One a week. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. One a week and see what happens. And I did it one a week, and then I got into the habit of doing them 4 times a day. Like they were so powerful. And so I've been doing it since 2010, like that, almost every single day of work days, like 4-hour chunks of time that are not necessarily related, right? Not necessarily. They're just, I'm getting this 1 hour done, but normally they do roll into each other. So that's one thing is just trying something. I don't know where I was going with this. There was a reason why I brought this up. But anyway.
Well, I have something I want to point out to everyone.
Okay.
And I don't know if they've noticed it, but have you heard how many things Joey has tried? How many different strategies he's pulling from to find his thing, right? But think about how many books he's read and how many masterminds and what he's done and invested to be where he is. And that's why you know what? None
Thank
of
you.
this comes easy, and none of this comes without investment and effort and willingness. But I mean, if we had to go back and listen to this, like it's double digits of all the different things you've learned and taken, this works, this doesn't, to find your way. So
Yes.
again, that's how you do it. There's no one size fits all. One size fits no one.
Mm-hmm.
But to find your size, you have to try on the small, the medium, the large, right? So, but again, a lot of people just aren't willing to do that. They want that quick fix. There is no magic bullet. I'm telling you now, there isn't one solution.
Thank.
But you know what? Just learn from what Joey just.
Thank you, Lauren. That
I
means a
just think
lot.
that you such. Well, you. What I love about Joey is he's real. He's transparent, but he walks the talk.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
I mean, I love lots of things about you, but that's why you're such a great role model. Besides, obviously, you're great at what you do.
Thank you. I
But
appreciate you.
yeah, that was a resounding theme for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
That
Thank you for seeing that.
yeah,
I wasn't even trying to point that out, but you're right. I look back at it and look at holy mackerel, like all of these things. I always want to try to. I know where my blocks are, most of them, and I want to try and fix them by looking at what what works and what doesn't work, and fitting it into my own schedule. And then I love sharing that. So that's the other piece of it is like, holy mackerel. When I devised the whole whatever I call the productivity planner or something like that of all the Brendan and the getting things done and the 90-day thingy, whatever, is like, guys, I got to share this with you. But then it wasn't like you have to do it this way. It was more like, here's why I did it this way, and then take what you like and just leave the rest. So the whole point of this is for you guys to do that. Here's the screenshot just as we close out tonight. Let me
get a
just
head
close
start
this
on
here.
2025.
There we go.
You will not regret it. Get a
100%.
head start.
We'll come back in and revisit this in 2025. I know Lauren's going to be back. So I appreciate you, Lauren, for all of your
Thank
genius,
you.
all of your expertise. I'm so glad
Likewise.
that we are incredible friends, that I get to share you with the world. And, what are you doing for anything special for the holidays? What do you got going on?
I'm chilling out.
Good.
I'm planning. I'm cleaning up. It's my favorite thing to do. So I love this time of the year because I'm an organizer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just enjoying some downtime, hang out with some friends, but
Good.
nothing hectic.
Good, good,
And
good. Yeah, we're
yourself,
doing
what
the
are
same
you
thing.
up to?
Same
Same?
thing. We have a small family, and we just like to chill, just to do the same thing, nothing huge. And I get a little bit more downtime, but I can't complain though. It was funny because even on the Saturday, we are at a Christmas party, which is rare. I don't go to a lot of these things. And one person, I saw them last year, and that was again this year. So, and they asked me the question. So what's been going on? Like, what happened? What's been exciting this year? And I had no answer. I'm like, I don't know. Everything's been kind of really cool, like really, like in a good way. I'm like, people are like sometimes their years are just like out of. I'm going, I don't know. I set myself up to be like so simple and just loving what I do, and nothing really. It's been kind of the same old, but like in a good way. And I didn't know what to say to the dude. And I'm trying to explain of why that's a good thing. That like being simplistic and boring, if you want to call it, was an absolute thing that I strived to get to, and alleviate all of the
Right.
responsive
Well,
and
that's exciting, right?
yeah, to me
Because
it was
that's what you've been
super exciting.
driving toward. For me, what was exciting this year is I learned without any doubt what I don't want.
Yeah,
And that was good. And there were points where I said, "Oh, no, you knew this anyhow. You should have just known this. You knew this." No, I recognize I had to go through what I did to get to a definitive line in the sand moment, and I'm excited about that because it needed to happen. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
remember that the exciting things are also what you learn that you don't want. It's not always about what's next and So I look at that as positive. I mean, other people would look at my year and go, oh my God, she wasted a year. I don't look at it that way. And so again, it's perspective, right? It's
Yeah, like I mean,
perspective.
I could this I think I should clear it. It's more of, they're not in this world. They're not in like entrepreneurship, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's more of small talk type of stuff. So I could have easily talked about, oh, I hired a team and I got my Notion, that like all this kind of stuff that I'm
No,
like
but that
super
wouldn't,
excited.
that's not, they don't want to hear.
But
It's,
they're
as you
like,
say, it's small talk.
yeah, it
People
was
ask
like
you,
they'd be
it's like when people ask
blinders.
you how you are and they don't even wait for you to answer, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So that's what I mean
so,
by not having anything majorly exciting. Like, oh, I went on a huge trip and I skydived and like none of that stuff. So anyway,
yeah,
if that
but
would
it
have
is,
happened,
you had
I
lots of,
would have said that.
there are lots of exciting things for you, but
Mm.
those people wouldn't get it, right? So
No,
what's the
no,
point?
no, they
So you
wouldn't get
just
it.
be polite and share it with people who get
Yeah,
it.
I just turned the question around. So like, tell me about your life. Like, mine's so
Yeah.
boring. Like, then what's going on with you? Anyway, okay, so we've been going like
All
super
right.
long, super
Oh
long
my
here,
God.
and
Doesn't feel like it.
yeah, it doesn't. It just time goes by so quick, which means that we're already at the end of the year. By the way, if you're watching us now, this will be the last live broadcast for this year because we do it Tuesday nights, and next Tuesday is Christmas Eve, so we're not going to be broadcasting, and then the week
Yeah.
after that
Your wife
is
will
New
not be
Year's.
happy.
Yeah,
Your wife
so
will not
this
be
is a
happy.
first. This is a first that we have not done this week to week to week every single Tuesday since I don't know 2019 or something, 2018, something like that. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, or
Happy New
all the
Year.
stuff that you celebrate. Happy, happy, happy.
Everything, whatever you celebrate. Yeah.
Yeah, Merry
Yay, I'm so
celebrations.
glad I got to close out the year with you in a way. Like, oh my gosh. That's an
Definitely.
honor. That's special. That means a
Thank
lot.
you. Me too. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. We will see you January 7th, I think, is when we return. So we'll see you then.
Awesome.
Take care.